I'm going to be sharing screen quite a bit, and I'm going to be trying to flick between cameras, and then hopefully Francis or David is going to say if there's any mess up or anything doesn't work. I've got one set up here ready for you guys to see what I'm doing. I'm hoping some of you have downloaded the app that David mentioned earlier. I'm going to try and show you a big icon on the screen. I'm going to try and get to my live screen and show you my PowerPoint. And basically, I'm hoping that someone is going to tell me if you can't see it. So I'm trying to share my screen now, and you should just see the word animation and maybe a brick. I'm just going to check, make sure I can get my chat live. So that's the most important thing, that I can see chat at the same time. Hang on. I'm not seeing chat, David, so can you just carry on as we planned and just text me anything that you see that's important in the chat as we go. All right, so animation basically is breathing life into something that doesn't normally move. So I've got a picture of a brick because crazily you can animate a brick if you want to. So I say breathe life into something that doesn't normally move. I'm going to teach you about what I call cutout animation, but there's like tons of other types of animation. I've got some pictures, maybe even some videos that might play. You can do stop motion model animation, which is, you know, with puppets and plasticine and all of that kind of stuff. So you might be making models. You could create drawn animation with light boxes and stuff like that. All the rules and all the techniques are exactly the same, and you can use the same software for that as well. Drawn animation can be really simple, just little shapes and stuff like that. So anything you can imagine, you can draw, you can turn into animation. Maybe you'd call it cartoon animation. And cutout animation. Basically, this is created in a school environment. So this is 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds created this little clip. I'll try and play it to you. So just simple animation under the camera, which is what I'm going to show you in a second. What other types of animation are there? Pixelation. Pixelation, probably my favorite type of animation. It's something that I've done quite a lot with young people. Hopefully you will probably have seen some of this on YouTube. Basically just people moving around, creating patterns, doing all sorts of different things, making people disappear, come out of boxes, doing slightly magic stuff. It's a little bit special effects. It's a little bit crazy. But we're not going to do that today. I'm going to concentrate, if possible today, I'm going to concentrate on under the camera animation. So essentially, I'm going to try and switch back, and somebody's hopefully going to tell me if I am live and if it's working. So I'm going to stop that share. Hopefully you'll see me again. And I'm going to try and switch, if I can, guys. I'm going to try and switch to some other cameras. So hopefully you'll be able to see. I'm just going to do this slowly. I've got a camera set up here that points down to my system here and to my setup here. And then also, hopefully, I've got a live feed from the camera that somebody will tell me from my iPad and tell me if that works. So hang on, I'm going to try and see if I can just show you the software. So I'm going to try and share screen, and I'm going to go to, well, actually, I think I'm going to go to QuickTime Player because I think that normally works. And if possible, I'm going to try and show you from my iPad. So hopefully now you can see my hand, hopefully just moving under the camera. So that's my live camera. And then I've got one other that I'm going to hopefully use as well, which is the one that I showed you earlier on the tripod. And this will hopefully give you a bit more of an idea. It's got me in it as well, and it's got some of my setup, some of the things that David mentioned earlier. So key things, which are things like scissors, tape, and stuff like that, and things to get set up. So hopefully you can see all that. Right, so I'm guessing that most people are into the session now. So I'm going to sort of start for proper teaching you about the animation setup. So I'm just going to flick back, if I'm allowed, to my PowerPoint. So I'm just going to stop share and just go back to my PowerPoint if I can. So hopefully you'll again see my under the camera setting. Oh, I was just going to show you that once you get under the camera, you can do all sorts of things. So like cut out and paint animation, sand animation's a lovely one to work with. And also you can work with objects and other stuff. Don't get me wrong. I totally love puppet animation. The reason that I tend to try and I don't start with it, the reason I don't start with it is because you can sometimes have problems. So hopefully there's a little movie there showing you that the problem that I have is gravity with animation of model animation, puppet animation. So I'm going to teach you about cutout and that kind of thing. How do you set up your camera? Or how do you set up your tablet? Over the years, I've found tons of different ways of setting up. I'm using this system here on a bracket. You can use a tripod. I'm going to show you this version, how you stick the camera over the edge of the table, or maybe you could even work with a rostrum, which is a kind of a pro way of working. Let's see if I can get you back to my live camera if possible. So get back to, hopefully you can see me here, and I'm just going to try and share with, I'm going to try and just share hopefully with my top camera. Yeah, I think I've gone to this camera. So you should see the camera move slightly. Might look a bit strange. So what you're doing is when you're first setting up, hopefully you're seeing this, I've got a tablet here. I've already got it set on the app that I'm going to get you to use. I'll show you that in a second, hopefully, which is Stop Motion Studio. This doesn't need to be plugged in, Jonathan. So in fact, let's just try and see if I can show you the icon. Yeah, there you go. Then I don't have to go into the PowerPoint. So I'm trying to zoom in on it. So there you should have that icon, Stop Motion Studio. And it's by a strange company called Cat Eater. So if you look, there's a lot of icons that look the same, but that's the one you want. So then you start that, you'd start that app. I'll show you a bit more about that in a minute. All you do, if you're working at home and you haven't got a bracket, fancy bracket like this or a tripod, all you do is you find your camera on the back of your phone, you put it on the table. Obviously now all I'm seeing in my image is just a bunch of table. And then you just slide it over the edge, literally. So hopefully you're seeing this. You slide it over the edge. Yeah, I know that this is just a load of floor at the moment and just my feet. Yep, I know that. But what you can do is you can bring in a chair. You do not bring in a wheelie chair like I'm doing. You bring in a nice solid chair, and then you can start to put your card, whatever you want, you can start to put that. Whoop. And hopefully you'll see it. So you'll start to see it appear on this screen. And you can start to create some pretty good animation just using that device. Your problem is that if you accidentally knock it, it can mess up your animation. Now, David mentioned masking tape. Masking tape's pretty good. I always use electric tape that your mum or dad or whoever might have around the house. And the reason that I love electric tape is it never leaves any marks. So you can start to fix down your tripod, fix down your tablet, your phone, like that. You can't rip it. You have to use scissors. You can fix it down. And then you've got yourself a nice, simple setup that's pretty steady. Only problem here is I'm not using a proper chair. I'm using a wheelie chair. So that's not ideal, but you would obviously use a box or something more sensible than that. So I'm not going to use that method because I've got this other rostrum set up here with a magic arm and a bracket and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm gonna use with you guys today. So when I originally spoke to David and Scott, they said, well, are you gonna, are we gonna do like fancy characters? Hopefully you can see my very, very, very fancy character there. Are we gonna do fancy characters? And I said, you know what, guys, we are gonna start with just really simple shapes, because working with really simple shapes, so circles, squares, anything like that, that way you're kind of learning. So if you are working at home, I'm gonna try and check my chat and see if I can see that now. I tell you what, I'm gonna ask David or anybody, if anybody comes in on chat and asks any questions about the software, can you make sure you let me know, guys? That would be brilliant if you can. So most importantly, the thing that you can see that I haven't done here yet is I haven't stuck my background down. So I'm just going to position it and then get some tape. Here's one I prepared earlier. So just get some tape, fix it down. Obviously don't put the tape on your screen. Let me just go to a live picture. In fact, let me just set up a brand new one. So just create a new one. And then just fix it down best you can with some tape. I'm just using pink tape because you can see it more easily. Like that. And just let my focus get back. And there, hopefully you can just see that I've fixed this background down pretty much best as I can. I'm just going to move my camera again a tiny bit, just so you can see both things, hopefully. So you can see my tablet. And obviously, this is a tablet, but obviously this could be can be a phone. And what I'm going to then do is I'm just going to show you the absolute basics of animation quickly. And then I might switch back to my PowerPoint presentation just so I can run through a few other things. So this software, Stop Motion Studio, really easy, just like if you were using iMovie or another piece of software. You just got a nice red button here just for recording your frame. I don't think you'll actually hear any sounds. You might do when I press this. Yeah, maybe you're hearing some sound. That'd be good if you are. So I'm starting with my triangle and I'm just moving it a small amount. The great thing about most animation software, so even if you're not using Stop Motion Studio, is we have a thing called onion skinning, which is where you have this ghosting effect. I hope you can see it. So this ghosting effect, in fact, maybe I can maybe go straight to actually go to the iPad image. Hopefully that'll come on in a couple of seconds. Right, so now you're actually looking at the actual iPad screen itself, hopefully. So you can see that as I take a frame, you can see this ghosting, and it gives me a good idea of how my object is moving. Press record, move it again. Move it again. I don't think you're hearing the click anymore, but hey. Move it again. And then in theory, I've just made a little 7 frame. You can see 7 out of 7 at the bottom there. Little sequence. So hopefully now my shape will move along like that. And I've got it set on loop. So you just see that moving. Now, this doesn't always play back totally smoothly for you guys, but hopefully you're seeing pretty much that movement going along there. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to try and go back to my PowerPoint now. So that's your basic setup and your basic movement within animation cutout. So I'm just going to stop that share, and hopefully you can all see me on the screen again here now. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and go back to my PowerPoint if I can, my keynote. So 1 second. Just bear with me. Share screen again. Try and go back to keynote. Okay, so I'm hoping you've got the setups there that I showed you earlier. So I'm just going to get out of that one, out of that slide, and just yeah. So now I've been through all that. So that's that's just positioning your if you didn't understand exactly how that was, just pushing it over the edge just so you can see it, sticking it down, and then just sticking a chair underneath to make it work. Oh yes, and I've got a light. Yeah, actually I did have a light here. I set one up. So a little light sometimes just to keep the illumination even when you're animating, because sometimes, like today, the wind's blowing and the sun plays havoc with your lighting in an animation. So that's the software. Very quickly, in case you're just wanting to know how to use it. So this is the software that I strongly recommend. I'm so happy that this company created this animation software. Open it up down here. Start a new movie. Tap that button that I just showed you to take some pictures. And what I didn't show you. So one of the key things is this is the setting over on the left of this software. Over on the left is your onion skin setting. So you know that ghosting effect? That is set with that left-hand little slider. So, and then let's jump through those slides. You don't really need to see all those. Something else that I've found very useful is setting up your speed of creation of your animation. I always set it to 8. Okay. Now, some people love to work on 25, 30 frames a second. Aardman, people like that, when they're creating animation, they'll probably be working on 25 frames a second. For us, as in people who want to create animation quickly, work on 8 frames a second. It's a lovely speed to work on. Really, really creates some good looking animation, but you don't have to create 30 different positions for every single piece of animation that every single frame of animation you're making. So how to create animation? Yeah, I've kind of shown you this. So there is a slider. So, right, that's not supposed to play like that. So I think I've shown you all of that. So I'm just going to jump on to. So yeah, so cutting out your shapes. So what you want to do is when you're doing your test, I don't know if anybody actually at home is actually set up and has got the animation software running. If you have, cut out 3 different shapes and one a triangle, one a circle, one a rectangle. And then what you want to do is you want to move them all differently. You want to try and move one really slowly, like about 2 millimeters at a time, and then another one super fast. Now, I've realized over time that creating a super fast movement is actually not as easy as you'd think. So what you want to do is, I'm going to try and show you, if I can, pace. All right, I'm going to try and teach you a little bit about pace. So if you want to create something that moves quite fast, you just want to move it just a tiny bit. Now I'm hoping you can see my mouse here on the screen. Do you see how these stones have just been moved just a small amount? So actually a bit more than 3 millimeters. They've just been moved like about a centimeter, about a quarter of their size, about a fifth of their size. And then if I try and play that movie, you'll see that they move at a nice pace. Now, I don't know how that's playing at home. I don't know about my animation, my feed that is sending to you, but hopefully this is kind of giving you an idea of a sort of a slowish movement. It's quite a graceful movement. It's similar to what I was doing with the black triangle that I was moving first of all. Just a small little bit, okay? So if, let's just stop that one. If I wanted to move something fast, oh, hang on, get rid of my on-screen text. If I wanted to move something fast, I don't just put it any old place. I don't just put it like move the stones any old place. What I do is I just have a little bit of a relationship between each stone. So you see how these stones, I've moved them almost the whole size. So that's the size of the stone. And then I've moved it along, and it just, see how I'm just overlapping it a tiny bit using the onion skinning. When you see this move, hopefully, whoops, hopefully, fast. Yeah, hopefully this will go, whoops, fast. Hopefully this will go like really zip round. And you got a nice, it's still smooth. I'm really hoping this is playing at home. It's moving fast, but you're still getting a good looking movement to it. What you don't want to do is you don't want to do this. You don't want to do what I just showed you a second ago. You don't want to have like massive differences, because otherwise it goes a bit poppy and jumps around crazy. Actually, it's not that bad, but it's just kind of like, it's a wee bit jumpy. It's kind of popping around as those stones go. All right, so that is really important. So you're just thinking about either moving a little bit like that, or if you want to move something big, move it like that. You obviously have to think about other things as well. You obviously have to think about, yes, how much you're going to move it. Am I moving it a big amount? So if I want to move my head, am I moving it that amount, or a small amount, just a little bit each frame? But you also have to think about, am I creating an interesting movement? So am I creating something that flows nicely across the screen? Am I creating something maybe that bounces onto the top of the screen, bounces down, bounces across, you know, almost like a pool table, snooker table. So you kind of like can create different illusions as you're working. So what I'm going to just jump onto next, I'm going to go back to try and share my screen. Sorry about popping between these things. Go back to my keynote, I think, because I'm just going to try and introduce you to the next stage. So we've kind of done pace, really crucial. Let's just look about animation movement. All right. So what you can get away with. Now I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean be a lazy animator. I mean, what can we get away with? So I created this little video, and I'll try and play it as best as I can and talk over it. Yeah, so this should work. So you can create animation just by moving a little bit. So you might want to move things quite smoothly if you're creating like an object, creating just you see, like just moving it like this. The problem if you want to create a character animation is if you move it exactly the same amount every single go and everything is exactly the same, although it'll be beautiful and smooth, when you come to play it back, it looks kind of weird. So maybe what you want to do is, as you animate, you could maybe just add a tiny little bit of additional movement so that your character is not moving, absolutely sliding. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that that is not the deepest, richest animation that you could create, but it just gives you an idea of a starting point for how you might animate your character if you weren't creating a character with limbs. So I'm just going to try and show you now. I'm just going to try and show you, if I can, making puppets. Now, I absolutely love working with puppets and just creating. See here, hopefully you can see here that these are separate bits of a character that you then join together. So you've got these separate bits of a character and then you just join them together with blue tack. I'm going to try and switch back to my live camera so that I can, I'm just going to stop sharing and then I'm going to try and just show you. In fact, I'm just going to hold it up to this camera, which might work. So yeah, so if I can get it positioned right. So yeah, I can. So yeah, so you can see how on the back here, one leg's just fallen off. That's supposed to have happened, honestly. I've just got tiny little bits of blue tack, okay, that I am using to articulate my limbs. I'm then going to just put that back on there. And hopefully I haven't lost the leg on the floor. No, I haven't. So I've got my other leg here. And I've kind of recreated my tip-top amazing character there. And then I'm going to try and place that guy. I'll probably switch camera again. Going to place them under my tablet, move my shapes animation out the way and put that character under there and then try again to switch camera if I can. So hang on. So I'm going to share screen. I'm going to try and go back to my cameras. So yeah, okay. So I haven't set up a new one here, have I? So hang on. So I'm just going to set up a new one. And set up a new one just so you can see this a bit more clearly. Okay, and one thing I keep forgetting to do is I keep forgetting to set my focus. So I'm hoping that that is going to be a little bit better and stop jiggling around. So let me just go back to, if possible, let me go back to my wide camera if I can. Hopefully this is going to pong to the other camera. Yeah, there you go. So this is my current setup. I've got my character down here. I've got my background fixed. I've got my tablet over, or my phone over my work. And I've got my character here. Now, if you're working with character animation, obviously, so what I showed you before was where I just slid it along a bit, slid it along a little bit more. And that kind of created that slidey animation. Then I did another one where I kind of went and just recorded a little bit like that, moved it a little bit like that, and kind of created that jiggly animation. But I wasn't too mad on that because it's just, it works, but it's not absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to try and do next is I'm going to try and show you, now I've shown you a bit about joining your character's limbs. I'm just going to try and show you a little bit. No, I'm not actually. I'm going to, yes, I am. I'm just going to try and show you what you might do with your character. So I'm not going to start with a walk cycle because the walk cycle is ambitious and I can show you that in a second. What I'm just going to try and show you is just a really simple loop. Okay. So I absolutely love loops because they save time and they, I'm just going to try and fix the focus actually on this camera here as well. Hang on. So it's not jumping around quite so much. And if you want to create like a little loop, say if I was going to try and make my character wave, yeah, I could just animate the arm like this But my problem is going to be this character, as I try and move that arm, is going to jiggle a bit. So what I need to do, and it's the same thing, you're going to take a bit of blue tack, small, you really only need tiny little bits, like tiny little bits of blue tack. Sometimes you need 2 bits just to, if you know your physics, you just need to stabilize it. So I'm just trying to take that, and I'm just going to stick a couple of bits of blue tack on the back of my guy just to try and fix them down. There you go. It's a bit cold in the studio today, so the blue tack's not working perfectly, but I'll flip them over. Hopefully they don't fall off. Stick him down pretty much. And then hopefully, as long as I don't fiddle with his legs, you could fix his legs down and everything as well, but I'm not going to try that. I've just got his body fixed down. He looks kind of weird at the moment, but I'm just going to try and set him a bit better. And there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a tiny little wave cycle, or just really just show you him lifting his arm. I'm going to try and go reasonably quickly. So I think that lighting looks okay. Let me just set it one more time. Oh no, it was a little bit dark. So there you go. And probably going to try like 8 frames, something like that. So just take 1 frame. Hopefully my onion skinning is on here. So if you see, the onion skinning is set in the middle there. Just going to lift that right arm. Just actually, I'm going to do a little bit of a slow at the start. So just, you see, I think you can just see how that is. In fact, if I just go to my iPad, then you can actually see hopefully a bit better. Just 2 seconds while that appears. Hopefully it'll appear. Yeah, there you go. So hopefully you can see that if I move that like that, you start to see my animation there. So take another frame. I don't think you'll hear the sound now, but go and move that arm up. So you see, I'm just creating graceful. I'm not just jumping it up. I'm actually doing it. I'm trying to do it fairly fast, actually. I'm just going to get him to lift his arm and just bring it back down again. Like that. And then I might just slow it just at the end as well. Like that. And then hopefully that will just be him, my guy, just lifting his arm. Okay. Just lifting his arm. And then what I could do is I could just add those movements going back again. So I could take it so that his arm just went back down. So let me just see. So I've got those positions of the arm. Luckily, it always sticks the frame at the end. So when it sticks a new frame. So then I'm just going to try and move his arm back down again. I'm sorry I can't hear the click, but hopefully if you're seeing, you should be seeing the record button flashing, even if you can't hear the click. I'm just going to move it down and try and get it to the same position. Then hopefully you'll get an idea of how a loop kind of works. So let me just get that arm back down pretty much to the starting point. And then you get an idea of how a loop goes. So if I press play now, you see his arm goes up and down. And let me just try and show that to you without the black frame. So in a sense, all you're doing is it's just going up and down. So let's put it live. So basically you're creating an animation which can loop. And so you could have your character waving. Now I know, for those of you who are artistic at home, it's not the greatest character in the world. But what you can do is you can, even with something as simple as this, if you wanted him to wave, you can flip bits over and make it so he looks a little bit more like he's waving. Let's go back to the live picture if we can. So there you can sort of see that he's just a little bit more like waving in there. So I'm now going to, hopefully there's that on there. Yep, great. So that is kind of your starting point for creating a loop. I absolutely love loops because they save you time and they are perfect for drawn animation. They are perfect for cutout animation, and they're pretty good in puppet, in model animation as well. So they work for just about everything, and you can use them when you're creating games. So as in game design, or if you're an app developer, that kind of thing. They use little animated loops quite a lot in their work. Right, let me just try and see if I can go back to my PowerPoint easily. So I'm going to stop that share, and I'm going to try and go back to my PowerPoint. So share PowerPoint. Yeah, so we did a little bit on making your puppets. I've got a couple of notes here. Keep it simple. So when you are making your characters, don't have loads and loads of parts to it, because if you have lots of joints, elbows, shoulders, all of those sort of things, they can tend to fall apart. So I sometimes just say, okay, a bit like the one I just showed you, just a head, a couple of arms with joints, and then actually this one wouldn't be able to walk at all because obviously it's only got one lump for the legs. You'd want separate legs if you were going to do that. So always think about scale whenever you're creating an animation. When you're working live action, it's really easy to think about scale. Basically, most doors are designed for humans to fit through. But if you're making an animation, not always so easy. So do think about how big your props might be so that they look good when they're on the screen. Right, so what I'm going to do is, so that's my little video of just creating cutout. You can do, so what you can do, hang on, so I'm just going to pause that if I can and go back to the beginning. What you can do is you can create your design and you can make it so that you in fact, if I just jump back to this slide, do you see how I've made it so that there's a little overlap here? So when you're creating your character, do the same thing, overlap it, and you can just create replicas of each bit and stick blue tack on them, cut them out, and then you've kind of got a body that you can fit together that'll be as animatable as possible. Don't just keep it really simple. Yeah, there's an example with 2 legs, and that's your way to do it. It always looks a bit severe when you finally cut the arms off, but then obviously you've already created another set to stick behind, and then you kind of create the same look to your character. Okay, yeah, in fact, there is a tiny little bit of animation. Just showing you what you can do. So yeah, there you go. So keep the designs really simple. It just means that there's less to fall apart. And sorry, this is kind of like a weird thing. So like 200 to 250 grams. If it's really if it's too stiff, the card, too rigid, then you just, you can't cut it. And then if it's too flimsy, like normal paper, then it's too flimsy. So, right. So what I want to do now is I want to just show you another very important part of animation is holds. Okay. So holds are another really easy thing to create. Basically, a hold is when something stops. So you might want to, so here I've just got 3 shapes that come on, hopefully, and you'll see that they're not stopping at all. So you just go across the screen like that. They just move across. So but you might want to create an animation where they stop in the middle. It kind of works using a freeze frame. So they come onto the screen, they just stop, and then they move off again. Let's try and play that again. They just come onto the screen, stop, and move off again. But you know what? We can create, even when we're doing a little pause, we can create a little loop as well at the same time. So let's just see if this will work. You make them come on, and then you just have something else that happens in the middle. It's just a little loop in the middle, and then off they go again. Now, okay, these are just slightly boring 3 shapes, but remember, these might be your character. So they might come on, they might do something, it might loop, and then they might walk off again. Now this is where Jonathan is going to get slightly embarrassing. I'm going to do a stop share, because it could be something. I'm hoping I've gone back to live camera. So it could be you. So it could be your character, could be coming onto the screen, could be coming on. That's not looped, but then they turn to the camera and they start talking, or they start waving, or they start doing this. So this is a loop. Obviously it's not a loop, it's live action, but that could be a loop. And then your character could turn and walk off screen again. Other kinds of loops, well, you can think of all kinds of things that loop really nicely. Waves loop really nicely. Trees going past a car. And when you start watching animation from now on, you'll start to see loops being used. So cars are great because trees might go past. Obviously, you can only loop for a certain amount of time before your audience goes, hang on a minute, I'm watching a loop. I'm just watching the same thing again. Music is maybe making it work for you or whatever, but sometimes you can trick your audience for a certain amount of time, but don't trick them for too long. Right, let me just go back. I'm just checking on my time. I've probably got about 5-10 more minutes. So hopefully I can get to the end of everything I wanted to tell you today. So go back to sharing screen. I'm just going to go back to my keynote before I finish off. So for some reason my mouse has got lost. I don't know why that is, but we're not going to worry. So hopefully I'm back in my PowerPoint now. And so that was just using a loop. And then there's something else called boiling. Now boiling, do I need to tell you about boiling? I'll tell you a tiny bit about boiling. So what it is it's similar to a loop, but you bring your shapes on, you bring your character on, and rather than just having them coming on and just stopping totally dead. I didn't want to mean to do that actually. Rather than stopping totally dead in the screen, rather than doing that, rather than just stopping dead or using the loop that I just kind of showed to you, rather than that, what you can do is you can do something called boiling. And what you do is you just create tiny little bits of movement. So they come on and they just jiggle about just a tiny little bit. And this is great if you're creating a title sequence or something like that. Just a tiny little bit of movement. So you just really little. And that just creates this kind of like jiggling effect on the screen. Okay, and I think I've just got time to teach you, show you a little bit about replacement, because replacement is pretty cool. So replacement is, let me just see if I can help. Replacement, I'm going to stop share for a minute. So with animation, there's certain things that you can't do quite as easily as you can in real life. So if I want to say drop a glass, smash a plate or something in a live action film, well, actually I'd get 5 or 6 plates ready just in case the camera, there was a problem with the first time I took it, or the slow motion wasn't slow enough or whatever. You need a broom as well. You need to be careful that you weren't breaking something crazy. But if you were making animation, you're like, oh, hang on a minute. How do I create something that smashes? How do I create something quite simple like a balloon that you could create in live action real easy? You can just kind of like blow up a balloon and it works really easily. In animation, weeny bit trickier. So replacement is a really good thing to understand about. So I'm just going to try and go back to my PowerPoint one more time, or maybe not, maybe twice more, and show you a bit about replacement. Hopefully, this shape here, what I did with this shape is, I think over 6 positions, I changed its shape. So I'm just going to try and play it. I'll try and play it a few times, actually. So I kind of created a bunch of different positions. I think about 7 to change it from a rectangle into a triangle. You kind of have to think, all right, if I want to do that, it's easy. A balloon is easy because obviously you're just making a bigger version. When I tried to do this one, I was like, oh, actually, that's not quite as easy as I thought. And I had to, what I did was I kind of overlaid my triangle with my rectangle so that I could create these in-between positions that drawn animators are used to. I think I've got a video of me actually creating it, hopefully. So yeah, so basically you're just having to position very carefully each of your different shapes on. Do you see how I'm laying that within the triangle just to get that position exactly right? And then putting in my next shape to make sure that it works as best as I can. And yeah, so what you can do as well, so 2 seconds, I'm just going to jump back to that there. So what you can do as well, if you're creating a replacement animation, don't use that as your only thing. You can also add in your normal types of animation. So what I've got here is I've just created a little bit of a loop of the rectangle dancing about, and then hopefully, so just a little bit of it moving, a little bit of it moving just before it changes. So you can add your normal types of animation in with your replacement animation. And this you might want to do as well with your character animation. So I'm just going to check on my time. I think I'm okay till for about another 10 minutes. I don't know if I need a thumbs up. Is that, I think that's okay. So hopefully the SYFF guys will tell me if I'm overrunning, or they'll just switch back to live camera if that happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get off of here and just try and get back to my live camera if I can. So if I stop sharing here and go back to, hopefully you can see me now again. And then if I go back to QuickTime and share with my camera. Yeah, great. Okay. So on here. So I'm just going back and I'm just going to try and show you just a little bit about how you might create. I think I've got time just to show you a little bit about how to create a walk cycle. So I don't know if I'll be able to go right the way through it, because I'm just going to, so hopefully you can see what's going on here. So yeah, essentially, yep, my arms have fallen off. So I'm just going to try and stick those guys back on again. Onto my character, stick those arms back on. And then I'm going to try and show you, because another trick that you sometimes forget when you're animating is you can fix things down and then you can unfix them. What you fix down is really, really important. So what you fix and what you don't fix is really important. So in fact, I've got a good example here, actually. So I've got a windmill. It's really important to think, okay, I want my windmill blades to turn. Yeah, of course I want those to turn, but I don't want my windmill to jiggle about. So I make sure I put some blue tack on the back, or if I'm making a puppet animation, make sure you fix your backgrounds down as well, so you don't have them moving about. Or if you've got a character that's going towards a house, make sure that you fix down your house as well. I'll just fix that down. I'm actually not going to animate this. It gives you an idea. So I've fixed down my windmill building, and that could be anything. That could be like your patient in a bed in a hospital or something. You'd want the bed to be fixed down, but you might not want to fix the patient down, or you might not want to fix the doctor down, but you'd want to fix the windows down or any of the other stuff in your set. So I'll put my character on. So hopefully you're seeing that. What I might want to do is, if I was animating this character, I might actually want to make him so that he looked a little bit more like he was walking along. I might just make him, sorry, I hope you might not have seen what I just did there. So at the moment, my character is like that. And because I've made him really super simple, it's real easy for me to flip this leg here over and make him into a character that might look like he was walking along. Because I've kept him really simple, you can now see that this guy potentially has the ability just to move along. Hang on, let's see if I can get back to QuickTime. So yeah, so let's just go back to my actual iPad. Hopefully it's going to pop to full screen iPad. So now I've got this character here. Again, I don't want to just do, this time I don't want to do a jiggle movement. I don't want to do my super slide along movement. What I want to do now is I'm going to try and create a walk cycle. So a walk cycle is not the hardest thing to create an animation, but it's one of those things that takes a little bit of practice for speed and everything. With a character like this, a character as simple as this guy, this person, it's going to make it easier. If I had like elbows and knee joints and stuff, obviously I'd be making my life harder. I've just got like this super simple character. So hopefully I've got no extra bits of blue tack on the back. I've got a tiny bit just there actually, which I don't want. But that was where I fixed him down before. So I'm taking that bit, got a tiny bit of blue tack on the back of him. Just get rid of that. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to fix 1 foot down at the front here and keep the back one loose for the beginning. Okay, and I must set up a new project, so hopefully you'll see this happening. So just get out of that one, just press plus for new movie. I didn't really want that. So create a new movie, hopefully, yep. And I'm gonna fix, I think I'm gonna fix my front foot down, yeah. So if I fix my front foot down, they're not perfectly positioned, but I'm not gonna worry. I'm gonna fix my front foot down. I hope I've just got enough time. Yeah, 11:33, so I'm doing okay just. So my character's in already. And so this front foot here is the one that's got the blue tack under. So I'm just going to give that a little press, not too hard. And then I'm just going to get him into position, ready like that. And hopefully nothing else is going to stick down. And then I'm going to take my first frame. And now hopefully I'm into onion skin mode. Yes, I am. And then you'll see, if I'm lucky and this doesn't come unstuck, I move my character forward a little bit, but I'm also going to swing this leg here forward as well. So I'm just going to move that forward, but I'm going to move this leg a tiny bit more. Okay, so he's moving along and that back leg is now going forward. I should probably be doing something with the arms as well if I was creating a cool animation, just a tiny bit of arm movement as well. And then I take my next frame and then I move that character along a tiny bit more. I try and keep this pretty even now. And then this leg here is going to go carry on over there like that. Don't want to move it too much because I want to try and give you an idea of what's happening. And what did I do with my arms? I moved them up just a tiny bit. So just a little bit, just so that these arms don't look too crazily static. And then like that. And it starts to give you a bit of an idea of what he's doing. Oh, just doing his arms again. Like that. And then I'm just going to try and play that for you, just so you get an idea of, if I go to live like that, hopefully this will play now. So it gives you an idea. Yeah, hopefully that is playing a little bit. Gives you an idea of how you can fix something down. What would then happen is, I'm going to think I'm going to have to miss out my next stage because of time. But what I then do is I would carry on that forward, and then I would unstick the back leg and stick the new front foot behind to create him. What I've realized I've done as well is I've actually not created a very beautiful position, because I've put both legs together, and I should have created a character who had a bit more like that, or I should have used I've got a sideways character as well that you can use. You can obviously recreate a character that looks a little bit more sideways as well. Hang on, I'm not on live picture. So you could create a character that has a bit more animatability. Right, I think I'm going to go back to, I'm going to stop that share, because I think I've just checked. I think maybe I'm supposed to have wound up around about now. So so I've got one question actually that I don't know how long ago that was from. Just not too long ago. So anyone starting out in animation, I think the main thing to get together is think about your so hopefully you can actually see me now, and I've unshared everything. Yeah, so starting out in animation, I think you just keep everything as general as possible at the moment, because I think the way the world is going, being in animation, being in film is quite a good route. It does mean that if you've learned the basics, obviously I've just taught you some of the super basics, but if you can keep some of those things in mind, you can start to create show reels and learn about different things that will help you work in gaming and in regular art, so creation of stuff for websites, things like that. And basically what you want to do is you want to create, I think, a show reel of some sort, because if you have a desire either to go to college, or if you have a desire to go and try and get employment, you need stuff to show people. So I would suggest that is your first port of call. But if you're 11, 12, 13, 14, like I guess some of you guys are out there at the moment, I think the main thing is to concentrate on your different subjects. Physics and things like that, you sort of think physics and maths and that sort of stuff. Wow, I think Scott mentioned earlier, it's like, they're kind of, you think they're dull, but you know what? They're really useful for your coding or for your animation or for your just using kit generally. And so a lot of those subjects that you think are dull, when you start using them practically, they're a lot more exciting. And when I was listening to the writer talking earlier, he was talking about English and was talking about how to start a story. I was like, yeah, wow, there's loads of really important things. So some of those lessons that you're experiencing at the moment, you might sometimes find a little bit, I don't want to call them dull, but some, you know, they're just school. Some, just try and stay focused occasionally, because there's some useful stuff that you can then use when you're designing your games, your artwork, your whatever you might be into. What was the most stressful experience you had with animation? Jacob B. That's a good, most stressful. Hmm. Hmm. Animation's funny because, you know, we're really lucky. I tell you what is stressful or was stressful with animation. And I think people who are my age or a bit older can relate to it is when you used to create animation, you couldn't see straight away what you were making. So in the old days when we used to use film cameras, you wouldn't see it until the next day. And so you'd create an animation. And if you think of something like King Kong, when King Kong was first created in the, somebody could tell me 40s or whatever, Ray Harryhausen, he couldn't see what he was doing until the next day. So you kind of have this thing where you'd be like really freaking out and going, oh, what's it going to look like? You'd have to wait a day. And for a stop motion animator, which is what I love, it's really tricky to check things. Drawn animation, slightly easier, funnily enough. But nowadays, we have all this software. So things like the app that I showed you, we have that and we can check absolutely everything on here using onion skinning as we go along. And man, I tell you, that was a revelation the first time I started using onion skinning and being able to check what was the last move. So I think that could be me.